Now let's hear from a Rutgers University professor, Brittney Cooper. She's just indulging in some casual hate speech.
I think that white people are committed to being villains in the aggregate, right? The real sort of issue here, and I've heard people sort of say it, is one, I think that white people viscerally fear. It's not that white people don't know, right, what they have done. They know. They fear that there is no other way to be human but the way in which they are human, which is to, so, like you talk to white people and whenever you really want to have a reckoning about it, they say stuff like, it's just human nature. If y'all had all of this power, you would have done the same thing, right? And it's like, no, that's what white humans did. White human beings thought there's a world here and we own it. Prior to them, Black and brown people have been sailing across oceans, interacting with each other for centuries without total subjugation, domination, and colonialism.
Let's just talk about how historically illiterate that is. I mean, this is supposed to be a professor. How does she not know that slavery has existed for thousands of years? I mean, how do you think the pyramids were built?
Well, and they let her loose on children.
Yeah.
So there's so much wrong with that, Rita. It's not just anyone ranting. It is a university professor at a prestigious university in the US that is educating children. What she says about race is terrible. The idea that you put all people of a skin colour into a category the way she does is the very worst form of discrimination that we've seen. And then, as you say, she is completely ahistorical. What she was doing then was spreading disinformation.
It actually got worse. She actually talked about, it was basically, to me, genocidal talk about how whiteness needs to end and how we've got to take these mother effers out. Like, you would not talk about any group of people in those terms without losing your job, possibly facing charges of inciting violence. But you're a professor at a prestigious university. You can say that about white people.
We're normalising it. And because we hear this more and more and more, it's being let go. If something like that had been said 10 years ago, there would have been uproar. Now we take it for granted and laugh at it, except it's serious.
Oh, it is just so ugly. I'm going to play you just a little bit more of her and talking about just how she feels about, these are some of her students. Some of her students are going to be white. Can you imagine how they feel and how they're treated in a classroom?
They're so corrupt. Their thinking is so morally and spiritually bankrupt about power that they can't they fear viscerally, existentially letting go of power because they cannot imagine that there's another way to be. It is either that you dominate or you are dominated. And isn't it sad that is spiritually who they are and that they can't imagine a sort of more expansive notion of the world?
Again, she's talking about white people there. I mean, it's just gross. But then there's also the self-loathing white lefties. They're just as crazy. They're regularly losing it online. This one claims that there are no good white people.
You're not one of the good white people. There are no good white people. There are only anti-racist white people and racist white people. Stop congratulating each other. Stop separating us from the bad white people. Don't sit out there in comments and say, we don't claim them. We are them. We are them. We are the ones shooting up schools. We are the ones raping people. We are the ones enslaving people. We are. We're them.
John, help me out. I mean, really.
I don't think I can, Rita. That's so sad. And we can laugh at tenured professors at Rutgers, but what they say has consequences. And what was so difficult about that latest clip that you showed is that's what we now hear from young people. You go to a climate change protest, you go to a BLM protest, and you've got 10-year-olds chanting things like that, uncritically, unthinking. that's the tragedy. When adults do it, it's one thing. But when it then permeates to young people, it's another thing entirely. And it's so tragic. And you ask yourself, have we become so wealthy? Have we become so indulgent? Are we so complacent that we allow this to happen?
Yeah, and you know what? None of those people ever look particularly happy, the self-loathers.
But what has the left provided? That's right. It's not happy. It's not improving.
No.
It's not progress. It's a form of self-hatred.
That's it. And to inflict that on children, to have this doctrine pumped into their heads from primary school all the way to university, just think about the impact that has on them. Now, just quickly, I'm going to show you something from the Washington Post. Remember when they were a reputable news site? Now they produce headlines like this: Shark Week lacks diversity, overrepresents men named Mike. This is a real headline. I'm not making this up. Scientists say. Of course, there's always a scientist say. And the article goes on to note that researchers say Discovery's programming overwhelmingly featured white men as experts while emphasising negative messaging about sharks. Yes, that's where we are. John Roskam, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your insights.
Thanks, Rita.